Okay, we kind of got cut off on the last one there. So, the point that we were making is that in the world of is and the world of not, if people get them confused, we can say things like Kiss is the greatest rock band of all time, right? Now, if we say something like Kiss is the greatest, well, is it true? Remember, though, truth was up here. And she said that the road that is the road of truth, and the road that is not is the road of opinion. Now, obviously, if you're going to take something like Kiss is the greatest rock band of all time, well, you're using this is as an opinion. You're not trying to use it to state something that is impossible not to be, because it's quite possible that Kiss is, in fact, not the greatest rock band of all time. However, we're going to talk about something that is true. It cannot change, right? So we're saying that truth is changeless, which means it's also eternal. And so then we have to say, well, what is true in the fact of what is changeless and eternal? And that's not so easy to answer that question. And so remember, though, think about this. Remember the guy had to be just that was standing here, because in order to get through the doors of night and day, remember, it was justice who held those keys. And so one can have an opinion of justice, and then one can have the truth of justice, and these are two completely different things, right? So the opinion of justice really is a backward turning what we want it to be. And this is always backward turning, because remember, she said the road down here is backward turning, right? And so we always change our opinions because want is much different than is. But if we're talking about the truth of justice, justice is itself. In other words, we're talking about what justice means eternally and changelessly in itself, despite what we want it to be. So in the world of opinion, right, opinion is about want. And so we want Kiss to be the greatest rock band of all time, down here in the world of opinion. But in the world of truth, when we're talking about the isness of justice, we got to deal with justice itself. And it just so happens that things like 2 plus 2 being 4, it doesn't matter what we want. It really doesn't matter if we want this to be 5. It doesn't matter if we want it to be Brussels sprouts. The point is that 2 and 2 is 4. Kiss is the greatest rock band? No. It may be an opinion, but it's not an is. However, we would say that only a fool would use, at least in common language, when I say Kiss is the greatest rock band of all times, nobody means it in this, eternal and unchanging way, right? Why? Because most people confuse is and not and sort of use them interchangeably in modern or in common language. And that is symptomatic of the road that is not. Remember, she had said that these are people who confuse being and not being. So in other words, the just man will constantly try to understand will always try to understand the truth of justice. And so the just man forever questions himself, because justice itself, since it's eternal, is also larger than us. So we come to think about justice, we come to understand justice. Justice doesn't come to us. But the unjust man who is backward turning really cares only about his opinion of justice. And what you find is that want and opinion tend to go together. And so the unjust man is able to justify himself. And there's a big difference between justification and being just, right? Because to be just is to changelessly exhibit justice itself, right? But justification is to make what we want to be just. In other words, we don't really care about the is, we only care about the opinion. And obviously this can have really detrimental problems if the majority of the people don't care about what is just, but only consider what they want to be just. That's where you get the Commoduses from the movie Gladiator, and that's where you get the Euthyphros from the Plato's dialogue Euthyphro. And you can think of various other people, slave owners and Adolf Hitler's and, it doesn't need to be that grandiose. Just people who think that it's okay for them to cheat on their taxes but nobody else. I mean, those sorts of things. And it's common in human nature to call what we want truth or just or is. It's very uncommon to say, oh, even though I want this, it's not just. Which is why, if you remember, she said that not many people get here. Remember, she said that far indeed from the steps of men is justice, because most people don't care about isness. In fact, most people are bored when you talk about isness. In fact, most people would have a tough time with this poem because it doesn't make sense, because most people want to get paid, and they think about even wisdom in terms of getting themselves good jobs and getting paid. And so that's why, as she said, to most people, this does not even exist. And so they don't even think about things like justice or anything else in the eternal and unchanging. What they think about is justice for themselves. So this is about self. And that's pretty much where most people spend their lives, is here, in this area. So that's kind of the Parmenides poem. And obviously we're going to tie it back into some other stuff. So if we sum this up, is and is not, right? Is and impossible and not be means eternal and unchanging. And so little of life is eternal and unchanging. And yet, if we lack the ability to even see that there is that reality, then our understanding of things will always be this backward turning, sort of nightmare of various opinions. And when people start arguing opinions and we don't have an is in order to correct our different opinions, and so we have X, Y, and Z opinions of justice instead of one overarching is, X, Y, and Z come into conflict and eventually fight. Anyway, so that is sort of the Parmenides poem. I hope you enjoyed it.